need to know when Gulf's body fell limp. Gulf actually wasn't unconscious. His eyes were just closed because he couldn't stand the dizziness that was hitting his head. Although Gulf's eyes were closed, Gulf could still hear clearly when Mew received a call from Do. Gulf knew everything about a woman who was waiting for Mew at Do's house. Then Mew left him with Do just because Mew wanted to meet that woman. Gulf knew everything. Anger and hatred grew within Gulf. How important was that woman that Mew dared to leave him alone when Gulf's condition worsened? Even Gulf also heard what Do said. When Do was about to touch his hair, Gulf could feel it too. There was a little anxiety when Do acted like that. That's what Gulf feels now. Now Gulf is sitting on his bed alone. Gulf had just arrived after Do took him home. His stomach was still a little sore, especially his hole. It was still very sore if Gulf moved too much. Gulf tried to lie down, but suddenly he thought about how Kevin was doing. Gulf tried to get up from his seat, then walked out of his room to go to Kevin's room. When Gulf accidentally passed the living room, he saw Do, Arson and Dylan, who were sitting relaxed in the living room. Shifting his gaze, Gulf continued walking towards Kevin's room. Gulf knocked on Kevin's door when he got to the door. Knock, knock. Kevin, can Dad come in? 5 minutes had passed, but Gulf still hadn't received a response from inside Kevin's room. Gulf tried to open Kevin's door slowly, and it turned out that the door wasn't locked. Gulf went into Kevin's room, and when he was inside, Gulf saw Kevin sitting in front of his desk. To focus to notice Gulf's arrival. Kevin, Gulf called while walking towards Kevin. Kevin turned his head in surprise towards Gulf. Dad, instantly. Kevin immediately put away all the books he had been staring at so intently. What are you doing? Studying. Kevin was silent, still staring blankly at Gulf. Have you eaten? Cough. Last night. Where did Dad go? Kevin said sharply. Gulf was silent for a moment. He was confused about what to answer. Sleeping outside? In a hotel with him? Gulf widened his eyes. He was shocked. How could Kevin know about last night when he slept? Kevin, who told you? Look at this, Kevin said, while handing Gulf a photo. Gulf took the picture. Where the photo was, it showed Mew's face in the photo along with a woman, who was none other than Alicia. To be more precise, the photo depicts Mew drinking wine with Alicia, having fun in the middle of the crowd. This is not a quiet place, but it's a bar. Gulf swallowed his own saliva. Gulf was shocked. Gulf's eyes couldn't be averted. I don't know why his body suddenly felt very stiff. His eyes seemed to be holding back water, but he couldn't let it out. What is this feeling? Where did you get this photo? Gulf said, which sounded so cold. Kevin was silent. He didn't answer Gulf's question. Gulf turned to Kevin, staring intently at Kevin's eyes. Why are you doing all this? Kevin clicked his tongue. CK, Dad still doesn't realize? How many times have I said? Dad is just being used by that damn vampire. He even left you alone after he finished having sex with you. Come on, Dad. Wake up. Kevin, Gulf shouted, his body trembling slightly. Kevin was surprised to hear Gulf shout. He furrowed his brow, staring intently at Gulf. Dad still doesn't believe? How big is Dad's love for someone who always makes Dad confused? Dad needs more evidence? Kevin said. Then Kevin took a few more photos, then handed them to Gulf. There are 3 photos. First, a photo of Alex laughing happily with Mew and also Alicia while brewing his wine. Second, a photo of Mew whispering with Alicia, like enjoying the noise there too much. Third, this is not a photo that was taken secretly. This is more like a photo shoot. In the photo, it shows Mew sitting in the middle with Alicia, and to their right and left are Alex and also Violet's mother, smiling broadly at the camera. Dad still wants to maintain this relationship. Even Dad himself doesn't know what the meaning of the love you have. I know, Dad, I know everything. The man next to the vampire is named Alexander, right? And Alexander is your father, right? Dad? Then Alicia, that woman is Alexandra's daughter. That means that woman, your sister. Kevin explained at length, but he hasn't gotten an answer from Gulf. He was still silent. His face was confused. Don't tell me Dad doesn't know who Alicia really is? Gulf turned to Kevin. Where did you get all these photos? What are you actually planning to do? Gulf shouted hysterically, making Kevin suddenly silent. Why are you doing all this? Gulf asked in a very cold tone. Because I want to take Dad away from this house. Leave. Gulf said, then smiled thinly. Do you think you can do that? Kevin? Come on, you haven't graduated yet. Don't look for trouble. Just do your duty as a student. I know everything you do is for me. I know, but don't cross the line like this. CK, Kevin clicked his tongue. Crossing the line, Dad said. Are you crazy? Or are you really being fooled by that bastard's words? Kevin, Dad, Kevin shouted. Then Dad wants me to keep quiet. When people fool you, then can I just stay quiet? Ignoring all the problems that befall you? Dad is the only one who wants to think that I exist. And I won't let people out there fool Dad that easily. I know this is beyond my limits. But if I don't do that, Dad will get deeper into his plan. Will I? Not just us. Everyone Dad loves out there will die too. Mr. Lee. Uncle Saint. Dad doesn't think about them. Gulf was silent. Kevin's words did have some truth to them, but this was too risky for Kevin. Even all this time, Alexander has never considered you as his son. Then Alicia, your own sister, has a secret relationship with Mew, your lover. And foolishly, you still keep quiet and always forgive all the nonsense that Mew Suppasit said. From the beginning, Dad knew even a gay man's relationship will never go smoothly. There will always be conflict and cracks in your forbidden relationship. Why can Dad still be calm and act like you're fine? How can you deceive your own heart just because you have feelings for that man? Now, Dad is silent? Then after this, will Dad still forgive that man and believe all his nonsense again? No, when I heard Dad have sex with that man, I was really devastated. And the worst thing is, that bastard left Dad alone after having sex. Just to meet another woman? Kevin said, can't Dad still see the bad side of that man? It's clearly depicted. Mew laughing happily with that woman. It's like they are a married couple. What? Will Dad also hide this pain alone? Gulf's eyes started to water, but he couldn't cry in front of his son. Kevin let out a soft sigh. He realized that his father was going to cry. Then Kevin walked towards Gulf to take the photos that were still being held tightly by Gulf. He tore up the photos and threw them in any direction. Then Kevin pulled Gulf's waist to hug Gulf's body with sincerity. Now Gulf was in Kevin's arms, crying in the middle of Kevin's broad chest. Gulf couldn't hold back his tears anymore, and he ended up crying in Kevin's arms. It's okay. Everything will be alright, Kevin said, while stroking the back of Gulf's neck. Kevin's chin now touched Gulf's head. Kevin also tightened his embrace, letting his father cry, soaking his clothes. Seeing his father crying like this made Kevin's hatred for Mew even thicker. The desire to repay every drop of Gulf's tears that fell with the blood that came out of Mew's eyes. That's what Kevin was thinking when he saw Gulf cry. Although Mew's home was very soundproof, because of a vampire's strong instinct, you could feel the commotion in Kevin's room the moment Kevin argued. Not argued. More precisely, he had a conversation with Gulf. Two and his two friends eavesdropped on Kevin and Gulf's conversation. Their eardrums were louder even though they were separated by a large wall. At that moment, two got up and entered Kevin's room to separate the commotion. But Arson stopped him. Arson said, "Don't bother them. Just eavesdropping on their conversation is already beyond your limits. Let them solve their own problems. Arson's reprimand made Do obey. The three of them just eavesdropped on Kevin and Golf's conversation behind Golf's bedroom door until they heard the sound of crying. Arson told Do to call Mew. That's when Mew immediately went home. Upon arriving home, Mew hurried to meet Golf, but Golf was asleep in Kevin's room. Maybe because Golf was tired, especially since Golf hadn't rested since having sex with him. Mew intended to carry Golf to go to sleep in his room, but Kevin stopped him. Kevin roughly pushed Mew's body when Mew dared to touch his father. Kevin clicked his tongue. "TSK, where else do you want to take my dad?" he said sharply. Mew furrowed his brow, staring intently at Kevin. But he didn't answer Kevin's question. "Let him rest. Do you think he's your slave, who has to follow all your wishes?" Mew smiled thinly. "Slave? He's my wife." "Wife?" Kevin chuckled. "Isn't my dad just your mistress?" Still pretending to be stupid. "Asio, your wife is not Golf Kanawut, but Alacia. Alexander, my dad's older sister," Kevin shouted, staring sharply at Mew. Mew widened his eyes when he heard Kevin's words. "Why are you surprised because I know everything? CK taking advantage of my dad's body. Is that not enough for you?" "You little boy," Mew said. "Do you think everything you know is actually true? Are you sure about everything you know?" "Why not?" Kevin replied. "You don't want to tell Dad all your secrets, so I will tell Dad all your secrets. Do you think living a relationship full of lies on your bottom will feel comfortable?" "No, sir. You will only be a burden on his mind. You don't even care about him when he's in pain because of your actions last night. You just left my dad alone to meet another woman." Not another woman, but your wife." "But you're not wrong either. But do you have to take advantage of my dad like that?" Mew was still staring blankly at Kevin. "Taking advantage of your dad? Are you suspicious of me because of those photos you got?" Kevin was silent. "Do you want to come to my room with me for a while?" Kevin spat. "Come with you?" Rolling his eyes lazily. "It's up to you if you don't want to come. I give you one chance to tell me about all the secrets I'm hiding. So, do you have time to talk to me?" Kevin was silent for a moment. Then, when he saw Mew leave his room, Kevin was provoked by what Mew had said earlier. He followed Mew until he arrived at Mew's private room. But before that, Kevin kissed Golf's palm. 10:43 p.m. Half a day passed. Even Golf still hasn't woken up from his sleep. Mew had moved Golf into his room with a sleeping position that was a little stuffy if we were the ones experiencing it. Golf slowly opened his eyes when it was time to wake up. How ambiguous it was when Golf had just opened his eyes and saw his sleeping position, which made him a little breathless. How could it not be? Golf's body was pinning down Mew's broad chest, wearing only thin clothes. Golf could still feel Mew's trunk swaying, touching his navel. Golf widened his eyes. He tried to get up from under Mew's body, but he was confused about how to get up from on top of Mew's body. On the other hand, Golf didn't want to wake Mew, but his breath was too stuffy if Golf didn't get up from on top of Mew's body soon. Moreover, Mew's two hands were holding his head and also hugging his waist tightly. Golf let out a soft sigh until it made Mew wake up from his sleep. Golf was still unaware that Mew was already awake because now Golf closed his eyes. He didn't want to look at Mew's body for too long, which was very close to his eye distance. Mew smiled thinly. He stroked Golf's hair, instantly making Golf open his eyes. Golf leaned his head, making eye contact with Mew's eyes. "Good night, babe," Mew greeted. Instead of answering Mew's greeting, Golf instead looked away. Golf wouldn't win if he had to stare at Mew. "Still sleepy," Mew said again. Golf was still silent. He didn't intend to answer Mew's question. A few minutes after the silence, Golf tried to push Mew's body so that he could get up, but Mew didn't give him a chance to get up in his arms. Golf let out a long sigh, resigned because his efforts had not yet been successful. "Let me go. I could die from suffocation if you keep holding me like this," Golf said sharply. "You're out of breath?" Golf rolled his eyes. "Do you need to ask that question?" Mew smiled thinly, then he said, "Look at me." Golf tilted his head to look at Mew. Muach, there was no gap after Golf looked at Mew. Suddenly Mew pushed Golf's neck and kissed Golf's lips very brutally. "You, stop, Mew." Golf resisted. He kept hitting Mew's broad chest. But Mew still hasn't released his kiss. Mew was still enjoying licking Golf's tongue, biting softly on the edge of Golf's lips until they were red. Golf's breath choked. His chest felt very stuffy. His punches weakened. Even Golf closed his eyes again. When he realized that Golf was actually out of breath, Mew released his kiss, staring at the swollen eyelids of Golf, which were swollen from crying so often. Mew kissed each of Golf's eyelids in turn. Golf couldn't resist. Again, his body weakened due to Mew's touch. After that, Mew got up from his sleep and still in the position with Golf resting on his lower abdomen, still holding Golf's body. Then, Mew carried Golf's body, walking towards the sofa to get a medicine next to the sofa table. Then Mew sat down and held Golf's body on the sofa. Mew swallowed the pill and kissed Golf's lips to deliver the medicine, until Golf swallowed it. After making sure that Golf had swallowed the medicine, Mew took a drink of water. Then he gave it to Golf. After finishing treating Golf, Mew stroked Golf's hair. Golf still couldn't recover. His head was resting on Mew's shoulder. Mew also wrapped his arm around Golf's waist and his other hand was still stroking Golf's hair. "Sorry," Mew said softly. Mew kept saying sorry until Golf woke up from his sleep. Golf gently pushed Mew's shoulder to lean his head and stared blankly at Mew. Still dizzy, Golf shook his head slowly. Golf's expression was still frowning. "You're home," Mew nodded, smiling thinly. After that, Golf tried to get up from Mew's lap, but Mew was still holding him. Golf clicked his tongue. "I want to change clothes. Put me down." "Still hurt?" Mew diverted, making Golf sigh again. "Sorry," Mew said when Golf still didn't respond to his words. "Sorry. What are you apologizing for?" Golf replied coldly. "Last night, I left you. That problem." Golf said, "You're not wrong. Maybe because you missed your wife too much. You didn't realize that you were still with me that night. But it's okay. I understand." Mew pushed Golf's back, hugged Golf tightly again. "Sorry. I'm really sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you alone," Mew said in his hug. "Don't apologize. She's still your wife, isn't she? So it's natural if you care more about her. By the way, how is she?" Seeing Golf's attitude as if he had already forgiven Mew's mistake, it actually made Mew feel more guilty. Golf must be trying not to be stubborn and forgive what Mew did to him last night. "Golf," Mew called after releasing his hug. Do you want to go out with me?" "No," Mew nodded. "It's too late. The air outside is also very cold." Mew was silent. Mew Golf called. "Yes, babe. May I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you know that Alicia, your wife, is my sister?" Mew was silent. He didn't show any expression. "Why didn't you tell me? Is this also in your plan?" "That's not. Yesterday, you said you were going to tell me everything about your secrets. Is that just empty talk for reasons to have sex with me?" Golf said. "Golf, that's not it. Listen to me. It's too late. I'll tell you tomorrow morning. How long are you going to keep delaying things like this? If you don't want to tell me, it's no big deal to me. Besides, sooner or later I will know all your secrets." Golf said. "Golf, let me go," Golf said suddenly. Mew was still silent. He didn't understand what Golf meant by his words. "Please, let me and Kevin go. I don't want to ruin your relationship with your wife. Besides, isn't my position now? I'm your brother-in-law. Gulf, stop it. Stop. How long are you going to keep avoiding all these problems? Gulf said. Mew was silent. At least if you don't want to let me go, please don't have sex with me. I don't want to. I've divorced Alicia, Mew said. Instantly Gulf was silent in surprise. I really want to marry you. After my divorce from Alicia, I'll marry you. I want to stop loving you, Gulf said, a little nervous. Mew widened his eyes. Stop loving me. Gulf bit his own lip. I want to be a normal man. If you agree to this request, I hope you can forget about me. Forget about me? Mew said immediately. You want me to forget about you? Gulf was silent, still staring blankly at Mew, hoping his request wouldn't make Mew angry with him. I'm sorry. I'm trying to forget about you, but I can't. Let me be the one to forget about you, Gulf said. Mew smiled thinly. Forget about me? I won't let that happen. Then, should I get into your problems? Mew, come on. I really don't want to ruin your marriage. One more thing. You must also know that Mr. Alexander is my father, and I don't want to be involved. Problems with him again, you. I already know your childhood story, Mew said, instantly making Gulf furrow his brow. Don't worry about that. As long as you're by my side, I won't let anyone dare to touch you. Even if I have to fight your father, I will do it so that you can be my wife, Mew said, while stroking Gulf's ear. I've set up a meeting, Mew said. Meeting? Mew nodded slowly. I'm going to propose to you in front of Alexander and Alicia. Flashback. Still in Mew's private room. Now, Kevin is sitting in front of Mew's desk. So is the opposite? 5 minutes had passed, but Mew was still silent and hadn't spoken. Kevin clicked his tongue. You want to keep quiet like this? Then why did you bring me here? Mew smiled thinly. Then he took a laptop. Then he handed it to Kevin. A few minutes later, the laptop showed a video recording, where the video contains people who leaked all of Mew's secrets to Kevin and caused a misunderstanding. The contents of the video recording, where the video shows Kevin, who was 7 years old at the time. He was talking to one of Mew's friends in the basement, Dylan. He's one of the people who exposed all of Mew's secrets to Kevin when Kevin was 7 years old. You still remember that since then, Kevin has hated Mew? Actually, Gulf had told Kevin to be nice to Mew. Even at that time, Kevin obeyed Gulf's words before Dylan told him all of Mew's secrets. You also still remember where at that time Mew forcibly took Gulf out of the Valencrew dormitory. At that moment, Mew went into a coma. Even on the day when Mew and his 2 friends were still in the Valencrew dormitory, Mew always said, don't act as you please, or you will die at my hands. That's what Mew always said to Dylan back then. And when Mew went into a coma, at that time it was Arson who always took care of Gulf. At that time, Arson also said to Dylan, Arson said, why did you want to kill Gulf? Do you still remember that time? Arson was aware of that. Even Arson also knew from the beginning of Gulf's arrival. Dylan had hated Gulf very much. There was something Dylan planned when they intended to enter the Valencrew dormitory. When Dylan found out that Gulf was staying in the dormitory, Dylan intended to injure Gulf either in his hands, legs, or other parts of Gulf's body. That's why Dylan was rude to Gulf. That's why Mew always warned Dylan, and Arson was also aware of it. Kevin's hatred of Mew began when Dylan provoked Kevin to enter the basement. After his plan succeeded, Dylan immediately went to Kevin. He locked the basement so that he could have a long conversation with Kevin. From that day on, Dylan told Kevin all of Mew's secrets, starting with Mew's problem when Mew abandoned Kevin and Gulf with the excuse that Mew wanted to marry Alicia. Dylan revealed Mew's dark side to brainwash Kevin, manipulating all the truth and exaggerating the reality that happened. From then on, Kevin started to hate Mew because he couldn't accept his father being treated unfairly like that. How do I free Gulf from Mew's house? That was Kevin's thought at that time, when he first knew the dark side of Mew's world. Even Dylan also told Kevin that Mew was not an ordinary human. Dylan said that Mew was a vampire human. Did Kevin believe? Obviously not, until Dylan proved the truth of his words, where Dylan showed a video of Mew when he was on the side of his vampire. Mew was eating human flesh, killing some of his men. Dylan showed it all through a flash drive. Kevin couldn't help but believe it all. At that time, Kevin planned to tell Gulf everything he knew, but strangely, Dylan forbade Kevin from doing that. What happened? Now the day when Kevin turned 17 years old until Kevin is almost 18 years old. Dylan never stopped telling Kevin about the information he got. Like, about who Alexander really is, about who killed Gulf's real mother, and who was the mastermind behind the murder, about Alexandra's family members when he was still with Ms. Annie or Carla. Even the photos that Kevin got when Mew left Gulf after finishing having sex. Dylan also told him about all those problems. Dylan always sent newspapers to Kevin when Kevin was at school, because only with those letters, Dylan could tell him the information he got. One more thing, Dylan ordered Kevin to pretend not to know each other. Maybe it's so that Dylan doesn't get caught because he betrayed Mew. The core of the video that Mew showed was the moments when Dylan talked to Kevin, or the newspaper that Dylan showed was also included in the video. How did Mew know Dylan's dark side? Every move Dylan made, Mew always suspected him. Because of that, Mew asked Arson to always watch Dylan. What is Dylan's plan behind all this? What is Dylan's reason for doing all this? And why is Dylan still pretending to be Mew's friend after pitting Mew against Kevin? It's still a question. You're so suspicious, Dylan, the readers thought. Kevin stood there stunned after watching the video, still with his gaze directed at the laptop. Mew, who had been staring at Kevin all this time, now spoke. Is that all? What you know about me? Kevin was silent. Now his gaze was staring intently at Mew. You want to know why Dylan is nice to you, right? He likes your father. Instantly, Kevin widened his eyes, furrowing his brow, still not understanding what Mew said earlier. Mew smiled thinly. Did Dylan also tell you about Gulf Kanawut's past? My lover? He said sharply. Kevin was still silent, staring sharply at Mew. I'm sure Dylan wouldn't dare to tell you about that. Since he was a child, Gulf was raised by Mr. Lee. You know that. Because of the murder planned by Gulf's stepmother and also her friend, Violetta. My own mother, I apologize for that. Kevin clicked his tongue, but he didn't answer Mew's words. But behind all that, there are actually still many inconsistencies in the murder. Are you sure this is just the fault of Gulf's stepmother and also Miss Violetta? Mew let out a soft sigh. Alexander once intended to kill Gulf after Miss Annie's death. You know that. There's one more thing you need to know. Have you ever heard about Gulf's childhood? When he was about to be sold by his own father, Kevin raised his eyebrow. What do you mean? Dylan didn't tell you? Mew said sharply behind a thin smile. Kevin was silent. Alexander once intended to sell Gulf to a werewolf after his mother's death. Gulf rebelled. Because of that, Alexander accidentally stabbed Gulf's stomach several times with a 30 centimeters knife. But luckily Mr. Lee, Alexandra's friend, saved Gulf. He took Gulf away to save him. Now you know why Gulf always avoids meeting Alexander, right? How did you know all this? Finally, Kevin spoke. Mew smiled thinly. You think I've been silent all this time? Back then, Gulf was still a lover of my younger brother. Surely your father has also told you about a girl named Prim Chanakarn, his former girlfriend. Don't think that I and Mr. Lee are currently at odds. Kevin was silent again. still too focused on Mew's words. It's Mr. Lee himself who told me about Golf's childhood problem. I know you think I and Mr. Lee are at odds, but before that, I was very close to him as an uncle. I considered him my own uncle when Mr. Lee was still in a relationship with Violet's mother. Then Mr. Lee found out that Golf was in my hands. He was very angry with me, but luckily he still gave me a chance to explain all my plans from beginning to end. He already knew everything, but I asked him to act as if he hated me very much in public, so that Golf wouldn't get into trouble again. Do you understand that? Kevin nodded in understanding. Now do you still want to know my secret? Kevin quickly nodded his head. Listen carefully. I've planned all this from the beginning. From the first time I saw Golf's photo through a small frame, I was very interested in him. Then, I also know the requirements to become a whole human for a fox demon. I know Golf will definitely choose to kill his own brother because that's also part of my plan. The problem is, I let my younger brother be killed by Golf. I still can't tell you about it. Then after my younger brother's death, I gave Golf a few years to be free after stealing my younger brother's head, because that was one of Mr. Lee's requests. I had talked about this with Mr. Lee before. I kidnapped Golf. Mr. Lee asked me to let Golf go free within those tens of years. His reason, because Golf was also very devastated. Even Golf once intended to commit suicide after killing my younger brother. In those tens of years when Golf was still free from me, I deliberately approached Alicia, make her fall in love with me again. When the time comes, I guide Golf until he enters my world with the help of Mr. Lee. As time goes on, I try to make Golf fall in love with me. It really took a long time until finally he chose to fall in love with me. Unfortunately, I made a big mistake. I got Alicia pregnant. That was my biggest mistake that I always regret until now. Because from that day on, Mr. Lee hated me again. Until he broke into my house to save Golf. Then he didn't allow me to meet Golf when Golf was pregnant with my child. That day, I kept begging Mr. Lee to give me another chance, until finally he softened. He allowed me to meet Golf. But after Golf gave birth, he only allowed me to take care of Golf again. Actually, I was very reluctant to accept the condition, where I couldn't take care of Golf when Golf was pregnant with my child. At that time, my position was still as Alicia's wife. Even while I was married to her, I never had sex with her once, because I realized if I made another mistake, I would lose the person I love. I was very afraid of that. I always felt guilty when I couldn't answer Golf's questions. Golf asked me about my marriage to Alicia. I was confused how to explain that I didn't have any feelings for Alicia anymore. Even from the beginning, I didn't like Alicia. I was also afraid that Golf would be offended by my answer. I don't want to make Golf sad, but I'm very happy. I'm happy to see you grow up with me. I feel like I already have a small family with Golf. That was my dream when I first saw Golf's face. About last night, when I left Golf alone with Du, my friend. I apologize for that. A few days before that incident, I made a promise with Alexander and also Alicia, but cunningly they made a meeting when I was still dating Golf. If I didn't come to meet them, they threatened to kill you. Because of that, I hurried to leave Golf alone. I apologize. Kevin was still silent, not answering Mew's apology. In the photo you saw, you must have thought that I betrayed your father. One more thing you need to know. Dylan betrayed me. He is now on Alexandra's side. The smile I showed in that photo, it was because they threatened me. Alexander took Violet's mother hostage. At that time, Alexander said, "Laugh when the camera takes your photo. If you don't do that, your mother will die in seconds." I had no other choice but to obey his orders. Even I didn't know that Violet's mother was there. Alexander used Violet's mother to make me submit to him. They did that because they wanted to make you misunderstand. Because you are on their side, they will easily be able to kidnap Gulf. But luckily I made a backup plan. I managed to escape because of my friend's help. I immediately took my mother away from there, and I hurried home to meet Gulf because I heard you were fighting with him. How can I believe your words? Kevin asked. Mew smiled thinly. It doesn't matter to me if you don't believe me. The most important thing now is I've been honest with you. Whether you believe me or not, let it be your choice. Because the more you grow up, you will surely feel the same thing as what I feel now. I just beg you, don't keep arguing with your father. He must feel very sad because his relationship with you is getting worse. Kevin was silent for a moment. Why didn't you tell me all this from the beginning? Why did you have to hide this problem from me and also my father? Because I'm scared. I'm afraid if you know my secret, you'll hate me and then leave me. Mew replied, Is that your only reason? But you're also wrong. You shouldn't have taken this way to make my father love you. Mew chuckled softly. You know that I and your father are both men. And you also know that my world and your father's world are very different. It's not easy for me to think clearly. Only this plan is in my mind. Then what's your next plan? Mew was silent for a moment. I'll tell you when you're willing to accept me as your daddy. Kevin chuckled softly. One more thing I want to ask you. The girl I saw in the basement that day, is she Mew's little sister? Mew smiled thinly. He nodded slowly, but his head also shook slightly. Kevin let out a long sigh. Then, are you still afraid to tell Dad all this? Mew smiled thinly. Give me a few more days. Kevin got up from his seat. Okay? As long as you don't intend to kill him, I'll let you do as you please. Then Kevin was about to walk out of the room, but Mew stopped him. Wait! Kevin turned back to him. Layden, don't trust him too much. It's okay if you're friends with him, but don't let your mind be washed by him. You know who Layden really is. Mew was silent for a moment. Sooner or later you will know. Kevin was silent for a moment. Then he was about to continue his steps, but suddenly he turned back. I'm sorry. Only those two words did Kevin say before he left Mew's private room. Mew chuckled, watching Kevin leave. Don't trust me too much, little boy. Flashback end. 5:47 a.m. After talking about Mew's mistake, Mew took Gulf for a walk. Gulf to the garden near his house, avoiding Gulf's dizziness, sitting in front of the river, enjoying the cool morning air that Gulf had never felt. Gulf took a deep breath, then exhaled. He inhaled the fresh morning air. Mew chuckled. Looking at Gulf's face made him very happy. Gulf turned to him when he heard Mew's laughter. What's so funny? Are you crazy? You're laughing at me again. Hearing the teasing from Gulf, it made Mew laugh even more. You know, when your eyes look squinty like this, for some reason, my heart beats fast. I'm nervous, but I'm really very happy to see you smile happily like this. Gulf looked away. You're teasing me? He said softly, while looking down in embarrassment. Why are you so adorable? Babe, Mew said while stroking Gulf's hair. Gulf's cheeks flushed. You're always making jokes like this. Jokes? Mew said immediately. Babe, everything I've said to you, I've never considered it a joke. You're really adorable, and I like that. I love you more. Really, really love you. Gulf was still silent. Babe, Mew begged again. Without a response from Gulf, Mew touched Gulf's chin and tilted it towards him. A few days before I married you, I promised. I'll take you to your mother's grave. Really? Gulf said immediately. He was very happy now. He smiled widely at Mew again. Of course, me, you and Kevin. Let's go to your mother's grave together, okay? Gulf smiled widely, while nodding his head. You happy? Gulf nodded slowly. I'm really very happy. Mew grabbed Gulf's wrist, seeing the ring on Golf's ring finger. You still wearing it? Golf turned to his hand. I never take off the ring you gave me. Mew rubbed the ring on Golf's ring finger. Why do you always wear the ring I gave you? Because if this ring disappears from my fingers, it means I've completely let you go. Instantly, Mew turned to Golf. I won't let this ring slip off your fingers. You sure? Of course I'm sure. As long as you're still with me, still love me, I can guarantee my words. Golf was silent. Mew, knowing that Golf's mood was down, he kissed Golf's forehead. You ready to meet your father? I'm scared. I'm really scared. Please just cancel the meeting. Mew pushed Golf's back, hugged Golf tightly while patting Golf's shoulder gently. Don't be scared. I won't let Alexander hurt you. After all, he's your father. I have to ask his permission before I marry his son. What if he doesn't give you permission? Mew released his hug, looking at Golf with a smile on his face. I just need to meet him and then ask his permission. But I don't need his answer. Whether he allows me or not, I will still marry you. Alicia, is she alright? Mew was silent. He was still confused why Golf wanted to know about Alicia. I never knew I had a sister. Even though she hates me, I still want to have a good relationship with her. I don't want to hurt her heart for taking the person she loves. Golf said, Don't worry about her. I'm sure she's fine. Mew replied after releasing his grip on Golf's shoulder. Then he turned his face forward. You're angry? Golf said nervously. Mew deliberately remained silent. Mew, sorry, Mew. Golf started to raise his voice. I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you. Seeing that Mew was still ignoring him, Golf gently patted Mew's shoulder, leaning his head sideways right in front of Mew's face. It's okay if you don't allow me to meet her, but don't be mad like this. I apologize. Muach, seeing Golf's face so close to him, it made Mew's lust arise. Mew couldn't stand Golf's lips that always tempted him. Mew pushed Golf's neck and kissed Golf's lips roughly. Golf resisted. He tried to shake his head, but Mew's grip on his neck was too strong. Golf was out of breath. Mew realized, but he still didn't want to release his kiss. Mew gently licked the edge of Golf's lips. After finishing, Mew finally released his kiss. Golf couldn't speak. He took a deep breath to readjust his breath. After that, Golf hit Mew's chest hard. My lips are still sore. Mew chuckled softly. Forgive me, babe. Next time it will be even rougher. His tease while gently wiping Golf's lips. Golf widened his eyes, hitting Mew's chest again. But he didn't hit, because Mew was faster to get up from his seat to avoid the blow. Golf got even angrier. When Golf was about to step towards Mew to hit him again, Mew ran away from Golf, laughing contentedly. Seeing Golf angry at him, Golf jumped his legs, stared sharply at Mew because he was annoyed by Mew's actions that always teased him. Still not accepting what Mew did earlier, Golf chased Mew, and they ended up chasing each other. 5 minutes passed, but Golf still couldn't catch Mew. Golf pouted angrily. He didn't respond anymore. Mew's run. He sat back down in the garden chair earlier, arms crossed and his brow furrowed. Mew, realizing that Golf was sulking at him, Mew approached Golf. He sat down beside Golf, then leaned his head to the side facing right in front of Golf's face. Instantly Golf turned his face away, avoiding Mew's gaze. Babe angry? He teased again. Mew was still trying to lean his head towards him. Golf, but again Golf turned his face away. Forgive me, Ish. I was just kidding. Still sore lips, Mew said, still trying to make peace with Golf. Still not getting a response from Golf, Mew grabbed his chin. Although Golf finished pushing Mew's hand off his chin, Mew didn't give up until now. Mew managed to grab Golf's chin and tilted it towards him. That's not what I meant. Forgive me, okay? Still sore. I'll treat it later. That's it. Don't be angry. Want to hit Mew? Hit it. It's okay, Mew said, while stroking Golf's hair. Besides, you keep making me mad. Tired, you know, running around. Mew smiled broadly. Sorry, okay? You've forgiven me, haven't you? Hesitantly, Golf nodded his head. Let's go home, okay? It's almost time for Kevin to go to school. He'll be mad again if he doesn't see you in the morning. Want me to carry you? Don't. He said he was tired earlier. Golf pouted again, staring sharply at Mew. Mew laughed contentedly. No, I'm kidding. Ishk, my fiance's sulking. But it's okay, I still love my fiance very much. Golf patted Mew's shoulder. Crazy, huh? You're never tired of joking. This time I'm not kidding. Golf pinched Mew's stomach. It hurts, babe. Without paying attention to Mew's whimpers of pain, Golf got up from his seat. Walk quickly.